is the week after Easter, and the week after Easter, I decided to put that title on the talk today. Jesus is gone, now what? Because I'm sure that all of us were good Christians and went to Easter service last week, right? Yep. And so Francie I did a brain fart last week when we were going home, and I said, Francie, man, look at all this traffic. And she said it's one of the CEO weeks.
Christmas.
Yes, people who come on Christmas and Easter only. CEO, Christmas and Easter only. So I forgot about that. I don't know why, but I did at the time. Anyway, so there was a lot of traffic last week. A lot of people did go to church, and that's fine. And that's great, actually, because, I believe that church is what our society needs right now, as far as a gathering of people that can learn to promote each other instead of denigrate each other. All right, but what do we do now? Now that Easter is gone and we're not even close to Christmas, what are we going to do? So it's a good question for a lot of people, isn't it? Now, though, is the time that we should celebrate even more. Because if we listen to the Easter message, and one that Reverend Francie delivered last week, we would know that the Easter message is that Jesus rose again to bring forth the idea, to solidify the idea that you have the Christ within you, that you can do anything in your life right here and right now. And so if that's the case, we don't have to wait till we die to receive the goodness and the riches, whatever you want to call it, of God. We can experience that right here and right now. And that's so true if you look into anything you want to look into, but especially if you look into Jesus' teachings, that you'll find that what he was teaching us, or humanity at the time, was that we have to be able to accept our good now. And so, he was, of course, as Reverend Francie said last week, I can't remember exactly where she said it, but anyway, Jesus was not put to crucifixion by necessarily the Romans. He was put to crucifixion by his own Jewish people that he never did claim that he wasn't part of. He always claimed that he was a Jew. And so when he was put to death by them, what does that tell you? Why was he put to death by them? There was mainly one reason. There was mainly one reason that Jesus was put to death. The Jews voted against him to stay alive when they had the opportunity. And that one reason was that he knew that God was in everyone. Not just the Jews, but everyone. And still today, though, we have even a lot of that is still going on today, not only in religious societies, but also in humanity. I mean, just believe, it's unimaginable to think sometimes when you think 2,000 years after, and especially for Christians, 2,000 years later, and we're still looking at each other as different. We look at each other as, oh, that's an Islamic guy. I don't want to be with him. That's a Jewish guy. I can't be friends with them. That's a person of something else, some other color or something. Looks different than me, however it is. When that's one of the best things that God gave us, is we all look different, no matter if our skin color is the same or not.
That's right.
And so it's kind of funny to me. It's funny, ha-ha, but not really funny when you think about it. When you look at the news and see how we're trying to separate each other and instead of learning or knowing that we are all one. So anyway, what do we do now? We celebrate more, and here's how. Each of us have the ability to rise above any negative outward appearance. There's always going to be something out there that if we choose to look at, and then you can do it easily by looking at the news sometimes, if we choose to look at it, we can say it's a negative situation. And you're not lying when you say that. You're not lying when you say that. There is negative situations out there. But our responsibility as Christians, as people who follow what Jesus was teaching, is to rise above that. Because you have the ability within you. You have that same ability that Christ did, that Jesus did. To rise above that and see a better way to do things. And to exhibit a better way to do things. And if you do that, then the world will change. If no other world, your world will. And that's the most important world that you have to worry about. And see, we're not responsible for everybody else, the whole world. We're responsible for what? Us. It's easy when you think about it. We don't have to worry about what other people do. If other people do something wrong, in our opinion, then all we have to do is do the right thing. We don't have to say something to someone or do anything to anybody. In order to change the outer world, though, where do we have to look? We have to look inward. If we see something that bothers us and we know that it's wrong in our opinion, then we have to look inward and see, first of all, if it triggers something, see what it triggered in us, why it triggered something, and then go to the truth. Go to the fountainhead, like Fillmore used to say, and go to God and pray and listen. You know, a lot of times we pray and we are sitting there, God, let me win the lottery. God, let me win the lottery. God, let me win the lottery. And we're so focused on the prayer, we're not listening to anything. And then God says, after the lottery is drawn, why didn't you buy a ticket? You know, we don't listen. We don't listen to the guidance that we are supposed to have. So anyway, we have to go inward, though, to listen to what type of guidance we need to have to lift us above anything that might be bothering us in our life. Our situations are different. Each one of us has a different situation. Each one of us has a different background. And all of us can look back on our background right here and right now and say, oh, I went through that thing and it was terrible. But it made you who you are today. And the more important thing is it made you here today. And if you're here today, hear what I'm saying. Is that whatever you went through, you can overcome. You can overcome anything if you don't like what you went through, don't go through it again. The problem is sometimes as humanity, it's not human nature, but sometimes we've learned as humanity, if we don't like something, we're going to do it over and over and over again. And we're not changing anything, and we think, why does this happen to me? Poor old me. Because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Yeah, it is the definition for that. So we have to just figure out, okay, this is not what I want, dear God. What do I need to do to change it? And then it'll be small things that you have to change. Small things. And then a few days later, you'll find out, wow, I've changed a lot of things. And one thing you do need to do is stop, the old saying, stop and smell the roses. You need to recognize how far you've come. And in my life, being raised in Unity, that's one of the things that believe it or not, you have to get better, or I had to get better at, and I still work on it, is how to stop and look how far you've come. Because if you don't give yourself credit, sometimes you can get down, even though you're improving, you can get down saying, oh man, I'm still in that same thing. But you're not as much as in the same thing if you look at it, if you've actually changed for the better. And you can do it. Nobody can stop you. And we live in a society in the United States that we're so fortunate to be able to do that. The outside isn't oppressing us as much. When an individual truly looks at her or himself, the answers are revealed for their highest good. There's and I'm trying to think of her name, a well-known Unity teacher that's been gone for a long time, but she used to say, the more you try to look within and improve yourself, the more you're going to have to learn about Jesus Christ. Wow. And she was very actually true about that, because Jesus Christ was teaching the things that he had learned about himself and was wanting and was directed actually by listening to God to tell as many people as he could. And it was important for him to do it because he was part of the greatest, most organized religion at the time. And still today, there are Jewish people, probably in the upper echelons, that don't like the idea that what Jesus did. But that's okay. That's their hiccup, okay? They can get over it. So we need to recognize that anything that we have, it's all within us that's going on in our life. It's all within us to have a higher and better life. Because we can, and we will, if we choose to. If we want to live our greatest Christ life, though, we can use Jesus' life as an example. I said a couple of weeks ago that during Palm Sunday that a lot of people don't remember that Jesus was rebuked in a lot of towns on his way to Jerusalem. So even the most significant one I told you about was Nazareth, his hometown. And people that you were, and a lot of people know this, especially when you're talking about money, but it happens in everything, really. The people you grew up with, sometimes, not all the times, Not all the times, but sometimes humanity has taught all of us to, if someone gets successful in whatever way they're doing, then, oh man, they just got lucky break. They just got this, they just got that. They didn't do that. It wasn't luck. It had nothing to do with luck. It had to do with them deciding within themselves that they are worthy of goodness in their life. And I've known a lot of people that have done that, have succeeded in their life, however it is, and have said the same story. You know, my childhood friends don't accept me anymore because of the fact that I am successful. And they've asked me, well, what is that? And I tell them the same thing all the time. It's because you have decided to turn within and listen to the guidance of God and accept that you are worthy of good in your life, and then that whatever they do is their choice. But you have the choice also to accept and receive God's goodness. Whether you do or not is up to you. But you have to recognize that you are worthy and accept that worthiness, because it's hard sometimes. I'm going to lose my friends to be exalted in life. Well, if that's what it takes, then you choose. And to be quite honest, you're not losing your friends. Your friends are losing you, because they are not looking at and saying that, wow, that's great that guy gave, that guy's successful. Wonder what he did. Let me go ask him and all this. And that would be the person that would tell you the easiest. Well, I changed this, and this. So we don't need to feel sorry for someone else that we have left behind because we have chosen to live an exalted life. We don't have to feel sorry for anybody that someone's left behind. I will be glad for you to come up with me. I'm not going to pay for it because that ain't going to do you any good. I'm not going to pull you. That isn't going to do you any good. You have to do it yourself. It's easy, but you have to do it yourself. And it's not only easy, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? All right. I did a little experiment today, and it looks like we ended up almost, not quite half and half, but about right according to the seats. I put the tables up because we're going to have potluck afterwards. And I was going to see who was going to sit at the table and who was going to sit. So we got the people who are hungry over here already, and the people who are. And it's all fine. It's all good. We're ready. All right. Have we ever gotten mad before? Have you ever gotten mad before? What happened after? Well, have you ever gotten mad before? If you don't raise your hand, I know that you're not telling me the truth. We've all gotten mad before, but what did we do after that? Did we just stay in that madness? Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But the most important reason I bring this up is the most important thing that we need to realize is what do we do after we get angry at something? Is do we turn within, which we should, or do we continue to focus on the outer circumstances? Because if we focus on the outer circumstances, nothing is going to change. But if we turn within and understand that, because sometimes, and understand why we got angry, sometimes we'll figure out that it really had nothing to do with the outer circumstances. Now, sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. Especially as we grow older, something sometimes will trigger something inside of us that reminds us of something else. And actually, if it does that, then it's a blessing to be triggered because we still need to resolve that. And if we can use that as a learning moment to resolve that, then it will be better the next time that anything like that happens. And you'll find out that less and less of that does happen because we're not triggered by it. So where did we go? We have to turn within if we're going to do that. If we get angry about something. I'm not saying that you're never going to get angry about anything. Heck, I get angry about, I watch the news and sometimes somebody does something or we're involved in something and it just, it makes me angry. And you got to look at that. You got to look at why. Yeah, I'm telling that right now. Where did we look for the answer that upset us? And if you're doing this, no. Those need to be turned in. Reverse those things. That's good, Francie. Okay, Jesus Okay, I'm going to tell you, these are three definitions that, of course, we had to learn in seminary, but these are three definitions that I've kind of changed the verbiage on the definition. This isn't directly from Fillmore, but it means the same thing. And so I just want you to I want to go over this to kind of tell you exactly, since I'm using Jesus as our way shower in this, to show you what we mean when we're talking about this in unity. And as you'll notice earlier, I was using Jesus Christ all the time, but here we go. Jesus was the man in history who enveloped his Christ nature and lived from it. So Jesus was the man. Jesus Christ was the man, Jesus living that Christ life. Okay? So people, especially in Christianity, get confused. They're always saying, well, Christ. And what they're meaning is Jesus. Most of the time, not all the time. But that's not really Jesus. That's the spirit that he understood about within himself. Jesus' last name was not Christ. Christ is the entity, if you will, of spirit. It's your oneness with God. And it should be told more about, especially I think in unity churches, we kind of get off on today's stuff, me included, instead of making sure that I need to focus on what the Christ is. Because a lot of Christianity, probably the majority of it, I would say, refer to Christ usually as Jesus, but sometimes they even refer to Christ as God. But Christ is the spirit within you that is your direct connection to God that can never be severed. So Jesus Christ was the man living the Christ life, living his Christ life. Christ Jesus is the Christ nature lived by Jesus and available to all of us. But as far as Fillmore's definition, Christ Jesus means the ascended Jesus, which means that spirit of Jesus is still here, okay? But it's within each of us. And so we need to recognize that that's not only, the Christ nature is not only, which I can replace Christ with human nature, because our human nature is to be our Christ self. But we have learned over our lifetime here that, I got to be scared of that. I got to be scared of this. I got to be worried about this. Oh, that person looks different than I do. Let's stay away from them. But that's not our nature, our human nature. Our human nature is our Christ nature. And our Christ nature is, like I said, directly connected, our direct connection to God. So if we understand anything today, let's remember that. Our Christ nature is our human nature that is our direct connection to God. What stage are we at now? And I said you, because each one of us have to answer that question. Are we at the Jesus stage where we're just a person, or we're just I'm Warren and I'm an accountant, or I'm Warren and I'm an alcoholic, however you want to do that, whatever you identify as, is that's what you're doing now, then you're just Jesus in that scenario. If you're Jesus Christ, then and this is the problem, because a lot of people, even in the people that say they refer Christ to Jesus, a lot of people know about the Christ Spirit. We had a minister that was a minister for 40 years at least, not in unity, and he was in Methodism. Which he was in the left side of Methodism, I understand that. But still, he understood, even though he was teaching what he was teaching on a Sunday morning, he crossed the line every once in a while and told, that Christ nature that was in that Jesus fella, that's in you too. And it was funny because in Wichita, Kansas, where he was at, we used to always refer to him as a unity minister at a Methodist church. And he really was.
Yeah.
He really was. He did a good job.
Then
he came to the Unity Church in Wichita. But anyway, we need to figure out what stage we're in. And it doesn't make a difference what stage you're in. Just recognize it. And recognize, again, like before I was saying, where do you want to be? Do you want to have the blessings that God intended for you? If you do, then maybe you need to bump it up a little bit and take on that Christ nature of yours. You know, you don't have to, but, you know, if you want to benefit from it, you can. I mean, it always is, as far as money, it always kind of makes me think of if someone put $1 million in front of you and said, there it is, it's yours, and you started questioning why? Why are you giving me $1 million? I mean, that question may come in your mind, but ask the damn question after you take the $1 million and go out the door.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
And then you know the church needs 10% of it. At least. So, which stage are we at right now? Jesus Christ. And then you can laugh at those people when they're saying Christ. Oh, yeah, you're talking about me, huh? Don't say that out loud, though, okay? Get in trouble, probably. This life was meant to be lived with joy, abundance, and love. Can you agree with that statement?
Yes.
If you can, then let's exhibit it.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to all, I think Unity is one of the best churches. Well, they are because let's see. They're all good at food stuff. And we got some good food in there. I already saw some of it. And so I'm trying to wrap up quick. But anyway, if we are willing to partake in a simple thing as some good fellowship around food, why can't we partake in some good fellowship around our Christ life?
Right.
It's that easy. We can share with everybody. This stuff of separating people that's going on right now, come on. Let's just accept all of us for who and what we are. We don't have to. If you feel like the necessity to identify yourself as something, so what?
Right.
I love you just because you're you. The Christ you. Here's an exercise that I've given you before. And it's hard for people still. It's hard for people still. Is when you go home, look in the mirror and say your first name and then say the Christ. Woo, doggies. Yeah, you think, okay, I'm up for it right now. You better go in the mirror right now in the bathroom and say it, because by the time you get home, you'll be saying, come on, man. So come on, let's be able to live our life with joy, abundance, and love, because we deserve to have joy. We deserve to have abundance, and that means anything. We're talking about health. We're talking about wealth. We're talking about anything as far as abundance. Food, yes. Food that, of course, won't make us fat. Yes. And love. And it all starts with this. We know that. I mean, everybody knows that in Christendom. It all starts with love. So once you do that, once you know love, then here's the deal with the only drawback I find from people having love, or with love. It's easy to love other people, but we got to love ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, then we can't do all this I'm talking about this morning.
That's right.
Because God so loved you, He gave the world you.
Yes.
He gave the world you.
Yes.
Now, don't be thinking that you have to die on the cross. But, that's a metaphor for us having to die on the cross. Because when we recognize that God so loved the world, He gave you, then you have to let go of all that other stuff that you've been living. And that's kind of hard sometimes. It's kind of hard. So if you're ready to do this, let's do it. When you live a Christ life, all the outer things will show their beauty and want to share it with you. Because it is funny. It is really funny. When you change your mind about all this stuff and you decide I'm worthy of living a good life, the whole world's going to look different to you. And it'll just start out a little bit, but then it'll more and more come, because things will be starting coming to you. And you'll find out that, man, I've been driven by here 100 times and I've never seen that beautiful thing. Whatever it is, a flower, whatever it is. And it's going to be a lot more than that. Jesus during His time wore a robe that didn't have any seams in it. That was a very important thing that a lot of people read the Bible and don't ever understand or ever want to know because they aren't even curious about it. That was a sign of opulence at the time. That was a sign of wealthiness. Very few people had a robe without seams. I've never had a suit without seams. You know? So anyway, there's things that happen that we kind of miss all the time because we don't pay attention. We don't accept the goodness. We don't think we're worthy, but we are worthy. You are the only one that God gave. And you have gifts that this world needs. So do yourself a favor and say yes to your Christ life. It is your nature. And I have been blessed for you being here today.